place where legends are made. This is a huge game. To the end zone. Touchdown.
Lord, that's how I get by.
Georgia, Bama, Saturday night, biggest game of the year so far. But from the world of college football, this might be the biggest story. If you haven't heard it, I'm going to explain it to you because I think it could be the beginning of an entirely new normal for all of us who follow sports. UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka has decided to sit out the rest of this season because of a dispute over a $100,000 NIL payment that his agent says was promised by an assistant coach over the phone in January, but never paid. The NIL collective that works with UNLV athletes said there was no signed agreement between them and Sluka, who joined the team in August as a transfer after completing his degree from Holy Cross. Sluka's agent said the quarterback was offered $3,000 a month in a phone call last week, and, quote, at that point, I think Matthew felt lied to, leading to the decision to sit. In a statement, UNLV said, quote, Matthew Sluka's representatives made financial demands upon the university and its NIL collective in order to continue playing. UNLV Athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of the NCAA pay-for-play rules, as well as Nevada state law. So why is this significant? This is not necessarily a player that you knew a lot about, although they are having a very good season and he is playing very well. But the reality is this could be described as the tip of an iceberg we're all going to have to get used to sailing into, if that is the right way to put it. Paul Finebaum, I'll let you start the conversation here. What is your reaction to this?
Greeny, the most surprising thing is that this isn't even surprising. We've expected something like this to happen, and before we all go into a panic mode, this is just, as you said, the beginning of it. You can't tell someone something in this new age of college athletics and not follow up. I don't blame the player one bit. From a legal standpoint, he probably doesn't have a claim, but this isn't about legality in Nevada. This is about promises made that weren't fulfilled. And I'm sure a lot of other players right now are looking around going, am I going to be the next one to jump in?
Danny, what's your take on all this?
Yeah, good for the kid. NCAA, wake up. Okay, this is hopefully a wake-up call. There's a verse in the Bible, it's 1 Timothy 6:10 that says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. This is what happens when you, as an NCAA, just free rein this. For the context of this, and I 100% agree with the young man in his decision. Mm-hmm. He played football at Holy Cross, okay? This wasn't a big, he's playing football because he loves football. Transfers, and now, fundamentally, he quits on his team because of money. That's where college football is right now. NCAA, are you happy with what you've built? Are you happy with what you've overseen? There's a young man who's a quarterback who played at Holy Cross who's quitting on his team as they're 3-0 because of money. That's ridiculous.
Can I tell you whose fault it is? It is the NCAA's fault, but not now. It was the NCAA's fault for all those years and decades that they could have made reasonable changes to the rules that governed collegiate sports. And because they were unwilling to give an inch, the Supreme Court of the United States laughed at them and all of a sudden just threw the doors open to this world we live in now, where it is the wild, wild west and there are no rules. And the NCAA has been proven to be completely
incompetent?
Lacking of, well, they have no power now.
Yes,
it's not incompetent. They have no authority. No one has to pay attention to anything they say because the Supreme Court said, oh, actually, you guys are a joke. This system you've been running all these years that you told us it had to be built this way, that was actually completely untrue all this time. And the people who had the power were just holding on to it. And more importantly, the people who had the money were just holding on to it. So now they've lost complete control of the situation and they're never getting it back again.
And that's the issue. We're asking these 20-year-old, 21-year-old young men to make decisions that older people are not making, the ones that you're trying to say you are responsible with this kid's future to make sure it goes as planned. For this young kid, Matthew, you're looking at a situation where, to our point, it's not about the legal issues. They told you to come here and play, and they were going to pay you this amount of money. When it doesn't happen, we're seeing the same thing in the NFL. When training camp starts, guys are not showing up because they're not getting the money that they believe they deserve. This is far worse because not only do you deserve it, they've told you that they're going to give it to you and then decide decided not to. So I can't even say he quit on his team. The university, they quit on him by not coming through with the things that they promised him.
J-Mac, imagine if this was Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. This would be a way bigger deal. And I think it's kind of garnered some attention. But if the quarterback for one of those schools did this,
and that's the issue,
this would be a massive thing.
The smaller schools, we're making these promises, trying to compete with the bigger schools.
Right.
But when it comes down to it, we don't have the money to pay these players the same way that you mentioned, those Alabamas and teams like that.
To be clear, the NCAA had a rule in which that there were certain meals at which players were allowed to be served bagels with butter, but not with peanut butter, because it would have changed the meal they were being served.
Yeah.
You guys lived those rules.
Yeah.
That's why we are where we are now. Paul, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, and frankly, what J-Mac said is correct. And it's not the NCAA's fault. That train left. It is Vegas's fault. I mean, we're talking about $100,000, and I realize that is a lot of money to most people watching right now. But at Alabama, Georgia, Texas, I mean, that's a backup. I mean, that's not even a legitimate player, let alone the most important player on your team. That's how ridiculous this is. And I think for players, I hope they get opportunities, but know what you're doing when you deal with some of these smaller schools, because the big schools will pay you, I promise you.